Welcome to week 4 of Cabin Fever. If you haven't already, go ahead and stop this video and go back and talk about the things you learned last week. How did the work productivity go? Did you learn some new tips that you put into practice from working from home? Today, we're talking about marriage. And I had the privilege of sitting down with a couple who has invested quite a bit into my own marriage. And I always believed I had a strong marriage, but quite frankly, I don't know everything about marriage. And there's always room to grow and improve. And as I was learning from this couple, man, I found out things about my marriage that I didn't even know existed. But they do, and I started putting them into practice. And man, I love where my marriage is at today. And so as we interview Pete and Mary Kay Blum, marriage experts, I hope you take some of their advice and put it into practice in your own marriage. Well, I'm here with Pete and Mary Kay Blum. Thank you both for being here. And in my mind, you guys are marriage experts because, well, you've been married for almost 35 years and you counsel a whole bunch of different couples, get them ready for their own marriages. And I've seen and been a part of some of the conferences and weekend retreats that you've led when it comes to marriage. So thank you for sharing your insight today on this topic of marriage. So,
Sure.
Pete, we have this kind of weird time that we're in, and how do we take advantage of this extra time with our spouse to make a marriage that is not just surviving, but really purposeful and thriving?
Yeah, well, thanks, Kevin. I wanted to focus on a couple of things about marriage that hopefully with the time that we all have more time. How can we be more intentional with what we hope to be one of the top 2 or 3 things in your life, and that should be your marriage?
Yeah, it should be, right?
It should be. And if it's not, call Kevin. But I would say this, there's a big word that's in the Bible about marriage that God actually says. God performed the first marriage and to Adam and Eve. And in that marriage ceremony, he said, the 2 shall become one. So that word one or oneness is a really important factor about marriage. And Mary Kay and I look at that, and from the Bible, we discern 3 dimensions of that oneness. The first one is spiritual oneness. It's like more what's going on inside your heart. The second one is soul oneness, shared experiences together, having fun, doing things that you enjoy doing together. And of course, the last one is body oneness or sexual intimacy. And the 3 all work together. And so I liken those 3, when I explain the relationship between those, as like when you drop a pebble in a pond, it creates a wake. And the very center is the spiritual the spiritual oneness that creates that momentum that goes into that second circle, soul oneness, that eventually leads to a natural outcome of body oneness or sexual intimacy. So in this season where we have time, we'd like to really have you think about those 3 onenesses. So spirit oneness, Mary Kay, why don't you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what that looks like for us is our kids are grown, and so we're empty nesters, and we get to start the mornings together. So we get our coffee. We have time in the morning before we start our workday, and we're just on the couch, and we like to spend that 7 minutes with the Lord. We get into the Bible. We want to kind of process through what the Bible has to say about life and circumstances, and then we open our hearts to one another. It leads to really good conversation on, this is what's going on with me, or I'm struggling today. This is what I'm struggling with. And sometimes it's just, it's identifying the emotions that are under the surface and knowing that, man, throw a pandemic into it and then coop everybody up in the house. There's going to be a lot of emotion. And being able to be honest and authentic with your spouse and say, these are the things I'm struggling with, and I'm feeling these emotions. I think that's important to bring that to your spouse.
And that doesn't always mean a struggle, right? I mean, sometimes
there's something, there's a praise in your heart. There's something really good happening in your heart. And
Yeah.
he's your number one encouragement to celebrate with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it this way. I am, as her husband, the most qualified and the one that is expected to speak into her life. And so I want to hear what she has to say. She wants to hear what I have to say. So there's a real investment into each other's heart, and it's an outlet. And let's face it, we're human beings. We have experiences that go deep inside of us, and we need to talk about those things.
Yeah.
And the best person you can talk to is your spouse. So
Oh,
we do
that's
that first thing in the morning. And once that's done and we pray together, it kind of sets the tone for the day, Kevin. And then the shared experiences, soul oneness, find out those 1, 2, 3 things that you like to do as a couple. You know, for us, the weather's nicer. We love to walk. So we walk together most days. Today, we didn't get a chance to walk, but we ate lunch outside because it was beautiful. And we just did it together. And we had some conversation. It was great. We laughed. We didn't have to talk about the Lord, but it was just a shared experience. And I came back and I was like, ready to go for the afternoon. And so, you know, I would say if you have the spirit oneness where you sow into each other's hearts, the soul oneness makes those times more meaningful. So by the time you get to the third one.
Well, let me ask you a quick question, Pete.
Yeah.
You have kids that are gone. And I think about these shared experiences. And for me, a lot of these shared experiences are with kids. Is that good? Is that bad? Or should I have it separate from my spouse? Or how do you balance that?
I would say, obviously, you know, you can't, you know, if your kids are running underfoot, you know, and you can't go on a walk and leave your kids at home. That is
right.
So obviously there are things that you can be creative with that the two of you thoroughly enjoy with your kids. But the truth is it speaks life into you. And so it's not the same if you take the kids and give, you know, your wife a break, Jamie a break. No, it's what can you do together as a couple with or without your kids. Obviously, there are a couple things that are best shared just the two of you, but it doesn't have to be. But you definitely want shared experiences. So for us, because our kids are grown and gone, most of our shared experiences are by ourselves, especially now with the pandemic. We're by ourselves most of the time. So it works out for just the two of us. But it can go either way, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so everyone listening knows, we've included a free date night in a box with this lesson. So you're gonna see the attachment. It's a recipe to cook together, some conversation starters, and a comedy show that you can watch together as you eat the meal you just ate. So there you go. Shared experience for you. Let the kids go watch some TV or something, get them distracted, or whatever you need to do.
That's great. Yeah. And then the last one, body oneness for sexual intimacy. You know, if you really look at how God designed marriage, and if you really follow his design, spirit oneness, soul oneness, sexual intimacy is just a natural outcome of that. So the degree that you share life at your heart and soul level, it's like it just flows. And I would say this to guys, there's something to having shared experiences that if you can do this and to follow God's design when it comes to sexual intimacy with the spirit and soul, you're going to find your sexual intimacy with your wife very, very meaningful. And wives, let me tell you something. It's oftentimes construed that all men want are sex, and that's not actually accurate. It's partly the truth, but the reality is we want companionship. We want a soulmate, and yes, sex is part of that. But if we can sow into these times, I'm telling you, it's a very, very meaningful experience for both the guys and the gals. In other words, God's design for marriage, spirit, soul, body, is not just for the gal, it's for the guy as well. Yeah. If we can follow that script and really, I say script, really follow that design and honor God this way, because he's the one that designed, he made marriage. If we can just follow the way he does it, we can both experience that sexual intimacy in a very meaningful way. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. And I know too, because it almost seems like my wife and I right now are doing this tag team thing where I tag in to watch the kids so she can work, and then she tags out and I can work. And but we're missing that shared experience and that spirit and soul oneness. And so these tips have been really helpful. And before we sign off with you guys, Mary Kay, final word from you?
Yeah, I think the one other thing I want to throw out there as a challenge that Pete and I have had in place for quite a while, and it's just the challenge to love well. And the way we define that is that whatever I say, whatever I think, whatever I do, I want it to be in my spouse's highest good. And he does that with me. And so it's a good self-check, kind of like a barometer, especially when you're together throughout the day, all day long, that I'm intentionally thinking about, okay, what I'm saying here, or what I'm doing right now, or what I'm thinking, is this in my spouse's highest good? And I think it just kind of keeps loving well front and center in the marriage.
I love that. That is a great challenge to take and to put into practice as soon as we watch this video. So for everyone watching, thank you for taking the time. These are the experts. They know it. Trust them and have good group discussion. And Pete and Mary Kay, thank you for sharing some of your insights with us tonight.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.